Hey Waypoint listeners, Rob here. A bunch of us have been longtime PC gamers, and as we all know, we're always looking for that little bit of extra power. As you know, with high-powered gaming, the difference between winning and losing is measured in milliseconds. Which is why if you don't already know about the legendary Alienware Battle Station, you need to. Alienware is especially designed to increase your speed and accuracy with every click, every press, every sound, and every frame. The comprehensive setup includes a cutting-edge gaming desktop, mouse, keyboard, headset, and monitor, all designed to give you every advantage. When everything's riding on your next move, none of it really matters if you don't have the right gear. There's so much power, so many possibilities on Alienware PCs with Windows 10. Learn more at alienware.com.
本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It's Monday, June 15th, and you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 321. I'm your host, Austin Walker. I'm joined today by Gita Jackson.
Yo, what's up?
And Rob Zachney.
Hello, hello.
How you guys doing? How was your weekend?
I had a complete mental breakdown about the fact that I'm moving. I need to text my boyfriend to make sure that he's given over the first month's rent and deposit right now, because we're supposed to sign the lease today.
God.
But
Are you just totally in that terrified mode where you expect it to somehow, some way just go poof?
Well, Rob, at 2:30 in the morning, unable to sleep, I ordered rental plastic bins because I started freaking out about where I'm going to get all my cardboard boxes.
Oh,
and you know
sure.
What? Plastic bins, honestly,
reusable.
About the same price and reusable, and you can buy plastic wrap, like parchment sheets and like bubble wrap to go along with it, and you get like 20 of them. And I feel like that'll be enough because it's not like I'm bringing any furniture with me. The really thing that's been bugging me out is like David and I have not lived in places that have had living rooms before this. We have never had to furnish a living room.
That's a big, yes. I've been in this situation before. This happened to me when I was in Canada, and I moved into a living room, or I moved into a living room. I moved into a new place with a living room, and I had an office space.
What?
And yeah, listen, it was wild. We'll get into it at some point off mic. And that meant all of my furniture was in the office space and in my bedroom, and so the living room was tile floors, just freezing cold, nothing on the walls. I didn't even have a TV in there or anything because it was all my office. So it was just an empty, miserable cave.
It's just like a horrible, sad, cold cave.
Yes.
Now, we're trying to avoid that.
Yeah,
I've been
don't
looking
be
at
me.
So many different sofas. The sofas are so expensive, and I don't know what to do. I'm trying to find one that's reasonably priced, which means under $1,000, hopefully. Right? But also, my apartment is big enough at this point that my parents could come. They live not too far out of state. So they could drive and crash at my house instead of having to get a hotel room or drive home. So I do actually need a sleeper sofa, and that just ups the price.
Yeah.
And so you could look at stuff like at Novogratz, which is this Instagram furniture company that I keep getting ads for, or IKEA, but then you have to spend hours and hours looking for which IKEA sleeper sofa is not incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah. I feel
all I can think about is couches.
I think the first couch you get is going to suck. I think that's a truth about life. And it just, you have to kind of almost accept it. I know Rob is probably currently looking at an entire catalog of good couches to make recommendations from.
I need Rob just with me through the entire process.
He recoiled from the screen as if
because
I
was
raised a
literally
cross.
sending Gita a link to a furniture company that specializes in really comfortable sleepers.
See, here we go.
Oh my god. Well, yeah. Well, my mom
said
said it's because she's sleeping on it, I'm sure. She said that she'd give me a little bit of cash to help with the couch, because it's that's the most expensive thing that a young couple is going to buy, I feel is a big couch. We'll eventually get a better bed frame, but a couch, we want to have people over, when that's possible to do. So we don't want I don't want something from Craigslist like I've just had every time I've had to buy
Right.
a couch before.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good luck. I hope Rob's like
you.
don't be like everyone else. Be like Rob's acne. Look for
Sincerely.
the comfortable sleeper couch that only comes from hours of research and years of slowly accumulated wisdom about how to live the better life.
Yeah, but okay,
You know-
here's the caution there.
Yeah. I'm waiting.
All right, the ones I've linked are really comfortable, but here's the thing. Like, with sleepers, a big part is the more comfortable, like, the better a bed it is, the heavier the couch gets. And so, like, the thing that gets really scary is day of delivery is, like, your last chance to have that thing moved without being a huge pain in the ass. After that, it's all on you. So, like, I've got this massive sleeper, and it is really comfortable. Like, in the summer, it's because it's cooler down here. There are nights where it's just by far the best place to sleep. But the problem is, like, if I had to move that thing across the room, I would be like, I would need paramedics standing by, right? I would need to have like a month of PT booked. If it had to go up some stairs, like, absolutely, I would die.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so we're both under 5'10". Dave, one of my
You do have that low
David's really-
center of gravity.
That's true. We could
And you're on the
just
first
really
floor.
lean
You're on the
back
first
far.
floor.
We're on the first floor, which is like the first time I've also moved into a first floor apartment and not have to deal with stairs.
Yeah.
So that's been nice. I feel like the heaviness is it's got actual real hardwood floors. So the heaviness is something I want to think about because I don't want this to get scratched.
Right.
It's
Oh,
a
you get
nice
nice little
place.
little grippers. That'll
Yeah, that's what I was
that'll
gonna
easy to work
say,
around.
yeah.
That'll help it. Might help
and-
me like slide it across if I ever need to reposition
Yes.
it. Hopefully,
Totally.
Yeah,
Slide, don't
Yeah.
lift, if possible.
I'm 110 pounds. Not gonna happen, baby.
Well, congrats again on the new apartment. I hear there's a backyard. I'm excited about that because I will inevitably be in that backyard drinking beer at some point in the future.
Yo, my mom's gonna give me one of my dad's charcoal grills. You're invited.
Hell yes. Cannot wait. Cannot wait for the cookout. Other things this weekend, the video games. There were 1,000 more video game live streams in place of E3. I'm joking, but only sort of. There was, let's see, the Guerrilla Collective had 2 different shows. The Guerrilla Collective being just a sort of pop-up shop. I don't know who was behind Guerrilla Collective. Did anyone else? I guess, okay, it's the same people who do The Mix, which is an indie exchange that I think happens a lot at, like, PAX. So that's who's behind that. So lots of independent games there. And then also the Future Game Show and the PC Gaming Show. The PC Gaming Show being a thing put on by PC Gamer that's been happening for probably, 5 or 6 years now? Maybe more than
sounds
that.
about right.
And then the Future Game Show was put on by Games Radar. Was that a Future Media Future Game Show? Or is it just like Future as who owns Games Radar? Who could say
that's Future,
anymore?
yeah.
So is that
Was that an AOL product, Games Radar, or am I bugging? Or am I from
God,
1993?
AOL had-
Because I just said bugging.
AOL
Jesus Christ.
did have ownership in something at some point.
It's weird
Right.
to think about how much stuff AOL was into
Yeah.
back when it was the shit.
We cannot go
Yeah.
down that hole
AOL
because we will
Time
be
Warner.
there. Yes.
It's just
Greatest
a
to
memory
ever do
hole.
it.
Just trying to.
God.
God.
Did anyone watch any of these? Because I kind of let myself fall into them, to be enveloped by trailer after trailer. What stood out to you, Rob? Because we cannot do what we did for Sony and go beat by beat because there's just too much.
No. So I started watching the PC gaming show, and so I basically have an allergy to survival crafting at this
Yeah.
point. And so pretty much any game where, like, like Dean Hall was showing his new game, Icarus or whatever, and like the first thing you see is somebody in a spacesuit chopping down a tree, and I was like, I'm out.
Dude. Yeah, I
Like,
was.
oh, is that a tree
it's-
coming down?
with the
bye.
same like chop animation of every other? Yeah,
Yeah. But let me tell you, did you see this game, Project Wingman?
I probably did, but I don't. Tell me about it.
Okay, so it is like a not like super low poly, but more like late 90s, early 2000s, like Looks like the Jane Strike Fighters series, and it's a combat flight sim, but like arcadey. That
Yes,
looks like
this
it's
is the
from
one that
era.
it looks like it's like an Ace Combat game mixed with the Jane's Combat sim stuff.
Yeah, and I think like for me that is just a really powerful resonant aesthetic because like for me that is the last time I was seriously into flight sims was when like remember that like mega Jane's Fighters collection came out with like U.S. Navy Fighters 97 as if there's going to be a 98, a 99 weird thing. Joint Strike Fighter, all those things came out in one package and they were manageable. Like they were still convincing flight sims in some ways, but they were also kind of easy to play. And Project Wingman kind of looks like that. It knows what you want, right? It knows you want wingman chatter, people being like tally ho, eyes on bogeys, and then like a cutaway camera shot of a missile drop firing from a bay rack. It's great.
That sounds good. From the PC Gaming Show, I think the thing that maybe stuck out the most for me is actually something that then just came out immediately, which was Among Trees, one of those crafting games you can't stand, that just has an incredible look. Everything is so saturated with color and kind of it's not just color, right? It's this sort of like dense gradient work where this green will blend into an orange as the sun is setting. Everything has this sense of fog kind of permeating everything. And that's just out on Epic now in early access. And so I put probably 6 or 7 hours into that, and it was very relaxing. It's just a very simple crafting game. And also all of the crafting is menu driven and is kind of, you're just like, all right, here's a cabin, right? Like I'm adding a wing to my cabin. You're not laying individual blocks. It's not Minecraft, which is a plus or a minus depending on what you want from one of these things. But it was a very chill game to spend some time with this weekend, which I've needed because the world has not been particularly chill lately. Also from the PC Gaming Show. Go ahead, Gita.
No, just as is tradition, as soon as you mentioned that game, described it, I just opened the Epic launcher and I'm
there it is.
Go get it.
Go get it.
Like literally every time you talk about a game on the show.
It's so good. It's like, well, it's just like, it's like I said, I think a big part of it is just, it's the moment for it. And I don't know where it's at in the early access process. It literally just came out yesterday or 2 days ago. So at this point, I would imagine there's probably only 8 to 10 hours of crafting in there. But it was pretty good. What I will say is you may hit a point where you cannot find a particular resource that you are looking for. Go further. Trust yourself. Your ability to travel further, even though the day grows long. You will need more oak or whatever the basic wood I think it's like, it might be like fir tree wood or something. And I was missing like 6. And the second I got that 6, everything changed because I suddenly could build a crafting room. I could build an axe. Once I had an axe, I could get my wood from all of the trees. But there was probably about 15 minutes where I was like, did my game bug? Did they run out of wood? Like wood scraps on the ground? They did not. I just could not find any.
I'm
but
so excited to play.
Yeah, I think Gita, you specifically will really connect to it. I also really liked the look of Valheim, which was kind of a 3D action adventure Viking open world proc gen RPG, which is not a thing I thought going into a game show like this I would be looking for. But there was something about the spaces in that game and something about the way the encounters felt really consequential that made me kind of curious about it. Like I don't go for kind of Nordic fantasy, Viking fantasy, just isn't my vibe. I'm not opposed to it in anything. It just doesn't do anything for me. But the way that this played out actually really did like strike me. I guess there's a beta available to sign up for now. I don't know if it's open or if it's closed. It looks like it might be closed. But you know me, I love exploration. I love that sense of like traveling into the wild yonder and stumbling into things and emergent gameplay and all that stuff. And so the fact that trailer kind of sold that to me pretty strongly is telling.
Austin, I have to laugh because the game I was going to shout out was a game called Dwarfheim.
Yeah.
Which is a cutesy-looking co-op focused RTS. Too early to tell too much. It looks like it has a nice, more like stripped-down Warcraft 3-like aesthetic in some ways. Or just from that era, not necessarily borrowing the entire art direction. But I think I'm extremely ready for... I like an RTS that just owns the fact that comp stomps were one of the most fun ways to play RTS games, just hands down.
Comp stomp meaning that you and a friend would co-op your way through, just like a skirmish against some computer-controlled AI opponents, and instead of being that high competitive, can I beat my friend? You're just like, yo, give me another beer, let's go.
Yeah, and it really did playing that way. Makes the RTS no, I think the get me a beer analogy is actually really good, because I think competitive RTS is Paul Dean had a really good line in his retrospective on Catan last week where he described it as it is a game of brooding silence. And I think that's competitive RTSs too, right? That's not a fun time in that way. It's not a social time. You're just totally dialed in on what you're doing in front of you. But playing co-op and just beating up on some AI, it's a lot more fun, a lot more relaxed.
Totally. If I can shout out, I keep going one more thing from these shows. But there was a lot, so please forgive me for going on quite a bit here. A very short one is, Gita, did you see that there was a Dwarf Fortress trailer?
Yes,
with the new tile set stuff? Yeah,
I did,
I'm excited.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm so excited. I'm sorry. I'm just excited for this game to feel accessible to people that would definitely get a lot out of it. I feel like the one thing I've always heard from people is that they would play it if it had graphics, and now I don't have a fucking excuse, okay? I think the game is parsable, even though when it doesn't have a tile set. I think that the fan-made tile sets are all really interesting and can be very creative. Not exactly difficult to install, although things get wonky around an update when everything breaks and you have to wait months for the fans to fix it again.
Yeah.
But the closer this gets to finally people in the mainstream who are just put off by the insular nature of this fandom, it's going to become so much fun to watch people discover all the ways that this game will just surprise you and make you just reconsider. I don't know, there's something really beautiful about the way that this game has gotten so particular at this point that you can really believe that the histories of these characters are real histories, and that the things that have happened in their past are real pasts. So that is the thing that I'm most excited for people to discover, and if it takes an official tile set to get them to play it, then whatever.
Totally.
Do you ever get the feeling Gita has really specific people in mind when she's talking about a hypothetical on the show, where I'm somebody is refusing to play Dwarf Fortress and it's just pissing you off?
Honestly, it is my older brother who, if you're listening to this, I know you read all my
That's
articles, so you should play. Please. He hasn't played a real game. The last time he was really into a game, it was Half-Life 2 before the global offensive update. And then he broke his leg for a little bit and just played Assassin's Creed and got back into games after that. And so I'm just trying to get him into more and more gamer-ass games, and he's been resisting because now he's an adult with a graduate school degree. So...
Listen to me. I'm same, and yet here I am scrolling through games I'm excited to play sometime in the next year or two.
Can I shout another one out?
Please.
Anyone see that trailer for Airborne Kingdom?
Yes.
So the thumbnail description, for those of you who didn't see it, it's worth looking up, but really it is somebody loves the look of the Game of the Thrones intro, the opening credits sequence, and made a city builder, I guess, or some kind of management game, where it looks like that, but it's in a world full of giant flying airships, and it looks really nice. It just has a really distinctive style, really detailed models, but like simple textures. Again, like low poly counts on the components of those models, and the map just looks glorious. It's got like beautiful text legends on the bottom of it and projection lines. It's incredible. It looks like, you know how like an important thing in some fantasy books is like the quality of the map, right? Like how exciting is it to just sort of pour over the world that's going to be serving as the stage for the action. This game seems sort of dedicated to that pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I think that, like, the core conceit of it looks like a tile-based city builder, but on these like very cool airships with huge winding, oars in the sky, or giant propeller systems. It presents this whole, like, there's a degree to which it's like looking at a clockwork, like literally looking at clockwork because of all the little moving pieces, that it feels like gears. And I think that ends up being a really sharp aesthetic to pair with a game that is going to probably be about, making sure all the systems work and all of the gears of this city that you've built actually function. This one, it landed for me on the side of like, okay, but what am I doing a little bit more?
Mm-hmm.
And for people who listened to our much gloomier PS5 conversation last week, I think maybe the big differentiator between us liking the things that we're talking about here and some of the PS5 stuff is like the degree to which I like to be pitched on how does this game play is very high, versus what the aesthetic is. I can get the aesthetic very quickly, and I've played so many games with great aesthetics that don't land, that I don't enjoy spending my time with. I'm not moved by, it's not memorable, etc. I think, especially in the independent space, the lesson of the last few years has actually frustratingly been that I'm more skeptical of something that has a dramatic and striking aesthetic, because despite the fact that it'll make a great first impression, it has often been the case that first impression is what lands for me, and then after that, there's very little, and that's just like, maybe it's a flip of a coin. Maybe I've played the wrong stuff in that way. But me, I like weird janky stuff. And I think part of that ends up being about when you have limited resources, where you put those resources and what connects to me as a player. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. Where I'm a person who, I'm trying not to be mean. I'm trying to be a nice person. Mm-hmm. I'm a person who really does fuck with aesthetics that can be described as whimsical or colorful, friendly, wholesome, one might say. But I'm finding more and more that games that bank on a wholesome aesthetic, once I actually dig into them, there's not much there besides the wholesomeness. And it's made me really skeptical of games that come in with a strong aesthetic in the same way. Because I don't want the wholesomeness to come from rounded edges and bright colors. I want the wholesomeness to come from the feelings that I have when I actually play it, when I'm doing the things I do it. I think like Ooblets has done a very good job of communicating wholesomeness outside of just its like aesthetic. It's shown us that the game mechanics are also wholesome, will also make you feel cute and, like you're being pet, like a little cat. Just all I ever want to feel ever. But I do feel like, I'm now more skeptical of games that don't demonstrate to me that they are thinking about the thing they want to express beyond the aesthetics.
Totally. On that note, I will shout out two things, one of which was at the Wholesome Game Showcase, if that's what that was called, and also one that I think fits that model. And in both cases stood out to me because they were not surrounded by other games with vaguely similar aesthetics or goals. There was a game called Calico that I think was at the it was at the Guerrilla Collective show on Sunday, and had previously been at the Wholesome Games show, and I just didn't notice it at the Wholesome Games showcase. You are running around an open world that feels very, very like pastel painterly. You're riding around on a big cat or bouncing around on a big inflated cat. You are doing favors for people in this space. As far as I haven't bought in because an aesthetic is cute and because you see that aesthetic mesh with some gameplay. Calico is there for me. And then the other one, which comes out tomorrow, which was a running theme throughout these shows. There was lots of June 16th. It'll be out June 16th. Is a game called Summer in Mara. Mara, in which you seem to be playing a little girl who is doing farming and taking care of people inside of this like set of islands across an archipelago. You got a boat. This game looks sick. This game looks so enjoyable. I've heard from some folks who've played review copies that the translation is not fantastic. But I don't know. There is something about the sense of location in all these shots that has me very excited to play this week. Again, I'm not like you, Gita. I'm not someone who is like fuck off games that are wholesome so much as I am invested in making sure that when we say that word, we understand what's at stake and we understand if we are closing the door to other sorts of games, that we should also make spaces for games that are not wholesome, and that being wholesome is not a superlative. Wholesomeness is not a, like, I think we use the word to be like, wholesome is good. Yeah. Wholesome makes me feel good. But wholesome stuff does not always make me feel good. Sometimes wholesome stuff actually makes me feel like a door is being shut. And you can try to like write your manifesto and say that's not what we mean when we say wholesome. But it is what lots of people mean when they say wholesome.
Yes.
So
yeah, I was reading a Twitter thread this weekend about the sort of the intersections between Pride and Black Lives Matter right now that are going on. Amazing, incredible protests in Brooklyn this weekend, marching from the Brooklyn Art Museum. That thousands and thousands of people for Black trans lives, which was really, really beautiful to see. But I read a really intelligent Twitter thread, which is not a phrase you say very often, where someone was talking about a phenomenon that they call tender queer, which is when queer people want to signal that they are a safe person to be around by embracing an aesthetic that it can be described as soft, that is welcoming, you're friendly, wholesome, I love loving things, that kind of thing. But that belies, like, an uncomfortable with examining the things that are not soft, right? And it can become a way for white cis queers to uphold white supremacy. Because transphobia is not soft. Transphobia is not loving things, right? Racism's not soft. Racism's not friendly. Racism's not welcoming. And it takes more than just rejecting racism. You have to, again, be actively anti-racist. You have to be actively anti-transphobic.
Right.
And tender queer does not necessarily create a space where you can be angry, for instance. You can be sad about injustice. It only creates a space of comfort. And I think that is my issue overall with games that use the wholesome aesthetic to present themselves to the world. I want to know that in that space, there's also room for other emotions, not just a feeling of niceness and of safety, because that can make people complacent.
Right. There's definitely like a safety for who, right? A component. Yes. And this is not, I want to be clear, I'm not saying this is then the cross borne by all of the games that showed up in the Wholesome Game Showcase. There are many games there that I think were doing their best to actually dig into some heavier stuff, or we're certainly not, and I don't think like the host of that show were trying to say like, oh, and these are the only games that matter or anything like that. This is not me coming at the Wholesome Game Showcase, but it is me, I think, trying to give voice to some of the like, when I see people talk about it, these are the things that they're not talking about or that don't necessarily come through. So if I can give voice to some of that discomfort, then I think that's all I need to do. When I list one more game that I think actually fits that mold, which was Lake. Did anyone see Lake? The game about being a mail carrier in Oregon.
That sounds nice. I did not see that, but that sounds great.
Please let me deliver people's mail in a nice town. I think
Austin,
again.
Can you pull the trailer? Because I can't. I'm trying to Google Lake, and that ain't
Lake
working.
Game trailer. Let's see if this pops for you. Yeah. Well, that one's from a little while ago. That's Primrose Lake. Where
do you guys know how hard it was to find the album by the band Girls when that came out?
God damn it.
Brutal.
Just hell.
Fuck off.
Yes, I can totally get you this. It's developed by Whitehorn Digital. I thought there was a newer trailer, but I'm going to link you the older trailer here. I'm just going to put it in our podcast channel over here. It's 1986. You go home because your dad is stopping being a mail carrier, and I think he's like sick, and you're picking up his route, which I don't know if that's a thing the U.S. Postal Service allows, but
that's
apparently
true. We don't allow titles of nobility per the Constitution.
That is
However, mail routes, postal routes are heritable.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's worth linking up this trailer because it's very. Here's the other one. The other one is on YouTube. Is Lake Gorilla Collective trailer. Actually, I think this might be the same trailer. I'm going to post it, and I think it's the same trailer, or damn near. You want to drive a mail truck around a cool Pacific Northwestern little town and look at a cat and talk to a lady while you're delivering her package. And, I think that the gist is very much narrative adventure, very much like you're getting to know the people here, very much, it does not feel to me like there is going to be a wild twist where there is a terrible murder or something. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's going to happen. All right. Any other final things you want to shout out from the show? There were just too many things, honestly, because I could keep going. But I think we should probably move on. Is there one more? Is there one more thing I want to say? Anno Mutationem, which is a cool name. 1, 2, I believe is being made. Let me see here. By a group called the China Hero Project, a group of Chinese developers. I think that there might be a connection with PlayStation there. I think they're part of a group of developers who's getting some funding maybe from Sony. Like that game Cloudpunk that we played recently, it seems like a big open cyberpunk world where you're walking around neighborhoods and stuff, but also blended with some like 2D, like very stylish action with some exploration and a lot of flair. It is a gorgeous pixel art game that sells like a kind of very stereotypical cyberpunk world, but in a way that I just haven't seen from especially this sort of blend of 2D and 3D art. So that is called Anno, Anno, Mutationem, Mutationem, and also probably worth a look. Other than that, there are a million other things. People should, if you watch the PlayStation 5 show, you do me a service by looking at least at one of the Guerrilla Collective days or the PC gaming show or the Future gaming show, just to get a vibe of like what else is out there. Because I think that there was a great deal of stuff there worth people's time. I guess also one of the big announcements out of this weekend was that Persona 4 came to PC. I think that came out of the Guerrilla Collective show or it came out of the PC gaming show, which I'm a little surprised that it came out, but I guess I'm not that surprised. It's been out for long enough time that people have been asking for the Persona series on PC for a long time. I personally would have loved a wider range of, just like if Atlas or Sega, I guess at this point, was like, oh, here are all the Persona games, here are all the Shin Megami games on PC, let's go. That would have been even better, but I understand that my demands are high.
Can you imagine, though, if we got Digital Devil Saga alongside this?
Please, if we could have gotten Devil Summoner, if we could have gotten... Yeah, absolutely. That would have been sick. Or even
just, like, as a curiosity, Persona 1 and 2.
Please put Persona 1 and 2 on.
I don't think I'll ever play Persona 1 because of the first-person dungeon crawling. Don't think I can handle that.
Sure.
But it really, like... Please, just give me access to these games.
I think the one that I wish... The one that I want most from that series... Persona 1 and 2 are definitely the ones where, like... I wish more people knew what those even were.
I wish the access was there more so than I wish these specific games. I just wish that people could play them.
Yeah, Persona 3 might be the one that I wish was if I could only have one of the other Persona games on PC, it would be Persona 3, because I think a lot of folks who played and liked 4 and 5 did not play 3 because it just didn't hit in the same way. And
3, I think, is a... Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, it would be cool to have that available for folks, because I think you would get people going back to play that, whereas 2 is like such a different thing that I bet a lot of people would buy it and start it and then not actually finish it, whereas I bet people would get through 3, and I think 3 has some really special stuff in it.
Yeah, I think 3, I started playing that right after college, and it hit me like at an exact right point. The first year out of college, if you're listening to this and you're just starting your first year out of college, this is the worst fucking year of your life. Like, you don't know what you're doing. This is the first time you haven't been in school like 9 hours a day. You probably won't get a job because our world is fucking crazy.
Right.
And you are just stuck there, knowing that this is supposed to be adulthood, and also being very aware of your own mortality and not knowing at all what the future holds for you. And playing the game with the tagline Memento Mori at that time really helped me get over that hurdle.
Awesome.
That sounds like better than what I did, which was get really into Take Command Second Manassas, and drinking screwdrivers starting at like 3 in the morning.
This is bad.
Just, like, playing on the laptop,
I did that part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Wow, we're all making great decisions.
And then going to my job at the liquor store. So that was
At the
that was good
liquor
times.
store.
It was real healthy. It was a real virtuous cycle, I think, is what economists call what my life was back then. Big virtuous cycle of good decisions. So I've been playing Persona 4 on PC.
Oh, okay.
And it's really, really nice looking. It's in at 1080. I do think the weird thing is the character models, you can see them a lot more clearly now. And like, I think the place it's landing the weirdest for me is I remember my character being a little bit blurry, let us say. And that was useful because I could project myself onto that like blur with a cool jacket. And I was like, that guy's cool. That guy's me. And now it's very much like, oh no, that dude is a model for a Korean menswear catalog, is kind of how the vibe is now. I'd also forgotten how fucking hard that game is in some ways. Like, I'm currently trying to rescue Yukio. Like the first person you really have to rescue in that game, the first major quest. And I just keep going deeper in this dungeon, and I'm like, I just don't have the spells. Like, this is a game of hard counters, and I don't have the counters.
You gotta grind. You just gotta.
It's a nightmare. I'm like, was it always this hard? I feel like now I need to, like, do I just need to play this with a guide and just say fuck pride and just like open up GameFAQs, play it with just one eye?
I mean, literally, unless you are going to suffer trying to get whatever, like the low-level instant kill light spell, unless you're willing to hurt until you find that, because for some reason this particular dungeon requires you to have this, and you keep getting the worst random number generator bullshit in terms of dungeon layouts. Open a guide. Unless that's okay with you.
God, I didn't realize that there were random dungeons in that. I thought those were set, but geez.
Up until 5, it's all random, and it's way worse.
God. Speaking of fuck pride, what I'm really curious about, Rob, is how the queer themes in that game, or the mishandling of the queer themes in that game will hit on a replay. Because I remember when that game first came out, which, was what? Was that 2010, 20, somewhere in there, right? 2011. There was a degree to which the response was like, hey, they're trying something here from a lot of people. And I think with time, expectations have been set more appropriately. And so stories that are on their face are about things like struggling with gender expectations, are much more clearly doing that by the way of transphobia or homophobia. It's not just here is a person who is presenting masculine because they connect to masculinity in some way. It ends up feeling like it's like transphobic panic, or gay panic in the sense of kanji, where the things that he wants to do are traditionally gendered feminine, and the entirety of that dungeon ends up being like, let's go kill the gay me, is fucked, in a way that I think at the time you made an excuse, not you, but some players made excuses for. I didn't even play this game. I watched Giant Bomb play this game. But watching it, I was like, oh, well, you're struggling with yourself as a teen and gender. And then with time, I was like, you could they're really close to being able to do this the right way, and then swerving to doing it really, really poorly.
I've always wondered.
Yeah, I feel like the impulse to kill the queer version of yourself is not necessarily one that does not ring true to the queer experience, but in this game they're not skeptical of that within kanji.
Yes. Yes, you can ask that question, but the answer should not be, and then you should go do that.
Yeah, it shouldn't be totally fucking do it, man. Go into a metaphysical dungeon and kill your queer self. Don't do that. That will not make you happy.
I've kind of wondered how much of this is also back then, like, the table scraps of representation thing is in full effect back then, right? Where it's like, hey, This is bad representation, but on the other hand, it is in some ways empathetic, and that is still different and a nice change of pace from the complete erasure that defines a lot of this landscape. But I also do feel like post Persona 5, it's like the past has been revoked, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, we've seen this way too much from the studio now. And so things that when Persona 4 was out, you might have looked at and said like, oh, that's awkwardly handled. That's not great.
Right.
Several years later, it's like, actually, fuck yourself. Like,
right.
This is actually coming from a toxic place. And back then, I didn't know you so well. I would give you the benefit of the doubt. You keep going back to that well and making it worse.
Totally. I mean, the other thing there that's so frustrating is that, like, earlier I was saying, like, with the kanji stuff, you end up going and killing the queer self, and that's actually almost giving it more credit than it's due, in the sense that it would have stayed on the question of gender identity, because at the end of that quest line is him being like, this isn't about, or not gender identity, sorry, sexuality. This isn't about sex at all. This isn't about like who I want to bone. This is just about like, I'm just afraid of being rejected or something like that. It ends up synthesizing everything down into something that is not even about any of the kind of semiotic stuff that surrounds a given quest. It's just like, oh, no, sorry, we were telling you this was about being gay, we're telling you that this was about wanting to be more masculine, but actually it's just about the stress of inheriting a title from your family or whatever. And it ends up, the double punch there is that, like, one, you've already mishandled the queer themes that you're playing with, but two, you're then saying that those queer themes are not enough to stand on their own to have been the focal point of an arc of your game. You're saying, actually, let me tell you about what really matters. It's the stress of family inheritance. It's the fear of rejection. And those things are important for sure, but the way that it's played out is like a gotcha, in a way that makes the game almost formally say, oh, this queerness is not an issue. Who cares? And that is additionally frustrating in a serious way. So anyway, I'm very curious as you continue through. One, if you do find yourself deciding that you're going to just have to grind through it, or pick up a strategy guide, or look up an FAQ or whatever.
Life is too short. I got to get that guide. Like, though I love the idea of, I'm going to experience this as people did. I'm actually pretty sure a lot of those people did experience it with strategy guide.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
True.
Even if that strategy guide was like calling up your friend and being like, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? But the one other note is, we can add this to the list of games Mina is weirdly obsessed with.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, there's something about, like, the aesthetic of this game, the aesthetic of Animal Crossing, like, big, bright games with, like, scrolls of text that appear. Mina can't take her eyes off of it. She watches me play Persona in a really weird and intense way that is, like, like what's going on in your head, dog? Like she's not trying to like paw at the screen and like kill the bear that's living inside of it. But fuck Teddy. But she just won't she can't ignore it.
Yeah. Weird. Shout outs to Mina. You're a very good dog. We should take a quick break, and when we come back, we can talk about some other stuff we've been playing. We will be right back.
I miss you.
Hey, this is Rob from Waypoint Radio. Obviously, I'm super into all things gaming, and there are a lot of us out there, especially now that we're all getting in some extra gaming time these days. Give yourself an edge with a comprehensive setup that includes a gaming desktop, mouse, keyboard, headset, and monitor, all designed to work together to enhance your speed and accuracy. I'm sure you know, the difference between winning and losing is measured in milliseconds. Having the right weapons isn't just a bonus, it's essential. There is so much power and so many possibilities on Alienware PCs with Windows 10. Learn more at alienware.com. Hey Waypoint listeners, Rob here. A bunch of us have been longtime PC gamers, and as we all know, we're always looking for that little bit of extra power. As you know, with high-powered gaming, the difference between winning and losing is measured in milliseconds. Which is why if you don't already know about the legendary Alienware Battle Station, you need to. Alienware is especially designed to increase your speed and accuracy with every click, every press, every sound, and every frame. The comprehensive setup includes a cutting-edge gaming desktop, mouse, keyboard, headset, and monitor, all designed to give you every advantage. When everything's riding on your next move, none of it really matters if you don't have the right gear. There's so much power, so many possibilities on Alienware PCs with Windows 10. Learn more at alienware.com.
All right, we are back, and while we took a break, a trailer dropped for Star Wars Squadrons, which I thought was not going to drop for another few minutes, but apparently it did. It's space. It's space. What else do you need? Rob, you're our resident Star Wars, X-wing expert. What do you think of this trailer?
Well, they didn't show any gameplay.
That
actually does matter here,
week,
right? Because, what are we
totally
talking about in terms of when you say I'm be flying an X-Wing or a TIE fighter around in battle, what does that look like to you? Because here's what that looks like to me. TIE fighter. Managing, multiple systems. One of the real pleasures of that series is a bit like the MechWarrior games. So much of it is about just constantly re-optimizing a manageable but still somewhat complex fighting machine, right? So that you always have something cool to do. You're always you have that moment in the trailer, full power to engines. That's all those games are, is oh man, power to weapons. Let these guys have it. And there's also the version, there's been this in Star Wars as well, to strip out all of that, and it's basically okay, you're gonna fly ships around in a big box here, but not as big as you'd like it to be. And then you're going to, try to land pot shots on people, probably with some lock-on targeting to help you, because otherwise it's hard on a game controller. And so I don't know. I'm a little bit as much as I would love for this to be okay, yeah, it's going to be X-Men versus TIE Fighter style. It's going to be Free Space or Colony Wars. There's also a version where it's it's called Squadrons, right?
Yeah.
I didn't love Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
A lot of people did, though.
A lot of people did. I think that would make some people happy. I will read to you from the press release. A thing I try not to do too often, but here we go. It's Motive Studios. It's Lucasfilm. In Star Wars Squadrons, players will enlist as starfighter pilots, stepping into the cockpit of iconic starfighters from both the New Republic and Imperial fleets. New Republic fleets. So this is post this is post Return of the Jedi, if it's New Republic, right? They will plan skirmishes with their squadron in the briefing room before taking off for space battles across the galaxy. I need to know if that's a real thing, or if that is actually just there is a screen before you start the match with like a picture of
me standing up there on Discord being like, and then we will rally at Waypoint Eta and begin our attack runs, and then like show feet.
God, I love playing video games online with people. Players will engage in strategic 5v5 multiplayer space battles with the goal of demolishing the opposing flagship in fleet battles, the capital F, capital B, fleet battles, and will feel the rush of first-person multiplayer combat as they work with their squadron to defeat as many opponents as possible in dogfights. So I don't know if that's is there one that's third person and one that's first person, or are they just trying to say
finally clarifying here that you're going to be in the cockpit, not behind the ship.
Totally. Pilots will triumph as a team, adjusting the composition of their squadrons to suit their playstyles as they progress, crushing their opponents and completing objectives across known and never-before-seen locations, including the gas giant of Yavin Prime and the shattered moon of Gallatin.
Hold on, brother man. We got a little thing from the YouTube description.
Okay.
Selling point here. Get in the cockpit.
Well,
the cockpit is your home. Use its dashboards to your advantage. And with just a thin hull of metal and glass between you and the perils of space, feel the intensity of combat from a first-person perspective. So I think they are trying to say, like, no, this is going to be
a cockpit-driven
in that way.
It does say it's going to be VR on PS4 and PC here. It does say that you will have rich cosmetic and gameplay customization options, and with rewards and bonuses earned solely through gameplay. No loot crates. No lotteries. We promise this time.
But what if a special mission comes along with like an Imperial loot fleet or something? Like if you like when this mission comes along, you can slip General Dodonna a little money, and then maybe you'll be selected more often for the convoy raids. Now, I don't know. So this sounds like maybe a cut down World of Warplanes type thing. Like
that sounds, I guess. So it's 5v5. Crossplay is nice across everything, including across VR. You can play with VR players not playing VR, which is interesting. There is a campaign. They do say that it's like post Battle of Endor. They do say that you'll learn what it means to be a pilot, which, okay. 2 customizable pilots, one serving the New Republic's heroic Vanguard Squadron, while the other fights for the Galactic Empire's fearsome Titan Squadron. The authentic story features a diverse cast of original characters, as well as some cameos from familiar faces in the Star Wars galaxy. I don't know what makes it authentic. My hope is it's authentic in the way that you said TIE Fighter to me is what I'm looking for, and the authenticity here is like from Star Wars flight sims. Yeah, you know what? I'll tune in later this week for the gameplay reveal. Fuck it, man. You know I like Star Wars. In fact, let me just do a plug. Can I just do the plug? Can I drop my plug?
Do the plug. And then I have questions.
About about this game. Or about Star Wars.
I have Star Wars questions.
Okay. So, November 10th, apparently, from a certain point of view, The Empire Strikes Back is a book that will be coming out on November 10th. From a certain point of view, first book, the New Hope one, was a collection from like 40 different authors with short stories about different characters in the Star Wars, original Star Wars film. This new one is similar, except it's for The Empire Strikes Back. And your boy is writing one of those stories. I am writing one of those stories. According to this article that they just posted, I am writing a story of an unlikely partnership between bounty hunters Dengar and IG-88 as they pursue Han Solo. I just submitted a second draft of that story like 2 days ago. It's very fun. It is. Let me just tell you, I love writing just good bounty hunter banter between two people who don't necessarily like each other, but wind up on the same side of a conflict. This is not deep shit, but it is good. I really enjoy it, and people should look forward to reading it. It's very fun to be like,
scale.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here in terms of, because remember Tales from the Empire?
Yes.
Where there were
Yes.
shorter stories, but
Yes.
then also there was a novella co-written by Michael
I
Stackpole and
would
Timothy
love to tell you that I was writing a novella here. Maybe buy the book and tell whoever, Disney, Lucas, Del Rey, that they
I'd
need
edit
to
you.
do
There's a
an
chance
Austin
you're writing a
Walker.
novella, regardless of what they.
It is not.
spec out.
It's submitted. It's within the. It went just over the word. The first draft was under word count by like 600 words. And then they were like, oh, could you expand here? And I was like, absolutely, I can expand there. And now it's like over the word count by like 200 words. It's a short story. It's like a short story.
Waiting your entire life to expand there. You were ready to expand there.
I've been, yes, exactly. There's some incredible people on the full list of authors, and I'm in very good company, and I'm very excited to see some of these other stories. Like one of those other stories in this book is going to be a naturalist caring for tauntauns on Hoth, which is great. There's going to be someone writing up from the Wampa perspective.
I can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too sad.
Yes.
It's going to be like when in Tales from Mos Eisley, where you learn that one of the characters in the background was trying to broker a peace. They did Dances with Wolves thing in Tales from Mos Eisley, basically, where it's like, we can have peace with the Tuscans. And the answer is no, they can't.
No. For people who don't know, Dengar and IG-88 are two of the bounty hunters who you briefly see in Empire Strikes Back. They're fantastic. They got some good development in what is now Legends story content. That is now non-canonical or Legends canonical.
Well, Dengar did.
But IG-88 got a story in Tales from the Bounty Hunter. I just reread it recently.
Yeah, it's the one that ends where he's taken over the second Death
Star,
and he's like full on like, I'm going to destroy
big
the universe.
Brain. Yeah, it doesn't go well for him because the way the Death Star goes. But I'm stepping in, and now we're in a new canon, and it's very fun to be able to tell a story about them. You had other Star Wars questions, though. Was it about this period of time that the game takes place in? Okay, what was your Star Wars question, Rob?
No. Actually, Austin, I do have a question.
Okay.
But actually, this is more of a comment.
Oh, great.
So, have you noticed that at one point in the Clone Wars Season 2, there's an episode set on the planet Mandalore, and somebody talks about how the Mandalorians were forced to lay down their weapons in the uprising against the Old Republic, and just the acknowledgement that, like, oh yeah, there was another Old Republic, and that one fucking collapsed too. You notice that? I like that a lot.
I did notice that. I like that a lot. That show continues to fucking whip every
katana saber. Shit.
Dude, it's sick. It's so good. That second, if I can shout out one Clone Wars episode, because we cannot do this. We cannot go down this. It is the one called Brain Invaders from the second season, which sounds like the pulpiest nonsense, and it is in some ways. It is such a template story 101 pulp action. It is very much, there is a military ship, and the two heroes realize that all of the soldiers on the ship have been taken over by a brain parasite, an evil brain parasite. That is very hokey stuff. But it ends up playing out it's the end of an arc that they've been setting up for 3 or 4 episodes. And it's just fantastic character work that says so much about what the implied relationships are between some of the principal characters in the show. It does so much good work with communicating a sort of underlying dread that should already be there. I've already said that one of my favorite things about Clone Wars is the way in which it foreshadows stuff that you already know is coming. And so this is an episode in which a bunch of clone troopers get brain parasites in them and decide they have to kill the Jedi that are on board. And let me tell you about the history of Star Wars. Eventually, they won't need a brain parasite to make that decision. I don't know. Maybe a brain parasite is involved in some way in their creation. I haven't done the science research. But that episode just absolutely slaps. It's so good. That show has continued to really impress me. So we cannot fall down this rabbit hole. But I guess we'll talk more about Star Wars later this week when this demo shows up, and this gameplay trailer shows up, and we can actually talk about it. Talking about video games we have played, Geeta, I know that you played a game that I didn't even realize existed called Little Orpheus. Did this just drop?
Yeah, this dropped on Friday.
Okay.
And Rob, and you obviously weren't there. Rob was out, so when I was trying to desperately DM Emmanuel, listen, this game, I know you probably haven't heard of by the studio, that you probably haven't heard of, is incredibly important. I want to play it immediately. I could not make myself known. But the Chinese Room, who people might remember from Dear Esther and Everyone's Gone to the Rapture and Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs, they stealth came out with a new game for Apple Arcade. And it's called Little Orpheus, and it's very different from their other works. The Chinese Room, I think, is the originator, or not the originator, their games are the originator of the term that is sometimes derogatory called the walking simulator, right? Where Dear Esther was a narrative experience where you walk through a landscape and a narrative is told to you as you move through the space. And certain things will happen, but interactivity is not a huge part of it. Amnesia Machine for Pigs has puzzles, but it's similar in that way where you are picking up journal pieces and trying to put together a story. And Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, I think, is the most pure, quote-unquote, walking simulator experience that people sort of understand as what the genre is. And I was actually looking up what they've been up to, because I forgot about Amnesia Machine for Pigs, and I was like, what is that game? Never gonna play it. Why don't I just watch a Let's Play and see what that is? And wow, that game rips. The game is really cool. It's a very good narrative. I told my mom the twist, and she was really into it. So
people should go play that game if they like horror games. That game's cool.
Yeah, that game's cool. If you like horror games, definitely play it. It's spooky, which is why I didn't play it. But the new game is not a walking simulator at all. It's a puzzle platformer.
Incredible. It's
a puzzle platformer, which is just incredible. And it's really good. Like, it's a very good puzzles. They fine-tuned the mechanics for the iPad in a way that makes it feel very good to play on iPad. A lot of games do not feel good on iPad, especially puzzle platformers, I find. But they figured out how to get, like, the controller gestures to work on a touch screen, where to move someone forward, you're only ever moving in like one or two directions. You swipe your finger one way or swipe it back, and as long as your finger's on the screen, they will be moving in that direction. And then you can use the other finger in your other hand to tap to have them jump, or to gesture up and down to have them climb things, or to hold on an object, to press and hold on an object so that your little guy will interact with it. And it makes it, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but it eventually feels as natural as playing with the controller. Although there is the controller set up for this too.
Oh, cool. What is the premise? What's it look like? Tell me about Little Orpheus.
Sorry, I was so excited that they made a puzzle platform.
Oh, I understand.
On iPad. I got so psyched for it. But yeah, Little Orpheus is the story of a Soviet worker who somehow faked their way into an experimental space program and was on a rocket when it was going to actually the center of the Earth. And he crash landed in a place called Plutonia. And unfortunately, he's the only survivor, as he knows, and is lost a Soviet terraforming device called Little Orpheus. And your journey is telling the KGB officer that's interrogating you what happened. It's unclear how true this tale is. The KGB officer is very unsure of it. And you're basically hearing the narration of the interrogation happening in the present tense while you play through the story of what happens in real time. It's really, really fun, and there's a T-Rex.
Right. Well, it's like the thing that, watching some gameplay footage of it here, the thing that separates it from me, or the thing that makes it seem really distinct, versus I think about the puzzle platformer, and I tend to think about Limbo or Inside from, was it Playdead Studio, something like that.
That's Playdead, yeah.
And all of the games that ape that style, that very like morose and desaturated vibe. And this is bright and colorful. And, I think the touchstone for my nerd ass is the quote-unquote Savage Lands from X-Men. It's like you're in a gigantic super jungle. You are in, like, giant plant bulbs in the distance as big as city blocks, huge colorful vines. You're in this bright orange cosmonaut suit. Like, it's pretty striking given what it is, and I guess I'm probably ignoring a bunch of other puzzle platformers that do this, and it's but yeah.
It does feel sort of in opposition to the Play Dead Grimdark puzzle platformer,
which I
that
love
became
those
very
games,
popular.
but I don't
Their
necessarily
games are
love.
really, really good.
Yeah, I don't necessarily love a lot of the like ways in which other people were like, and this is what a good game looks like.
Yeah. No, this one, unlike Play Dead games, you don't just get to see a child die over and over again. It fades out when you jump from something too high and you can't land, and that feels very pleasant. Because it's really, they figured out a very good way to deliver the narrative that they clearly have spent a long time on.
Yeah.
Where you reach a set piece where you wouldn't be touching the screen anyway, and then you hear a bit of the interrogation.
Okay.
And you understand that you're living through the journey of this character anyway, so you're going to learn what they see or what they're telling this person they see. And there's a sort of fun interplay between these two characters that are very well written. I really, and also just the music slaps so fucking hard.
Just like I've not heard it yet, but I'm excited to.
It's a lot of good oboe shit. It's just immediate. It's Jack DeKeat food.
Hell yeah,
what it is.
Perfect,
It
incredible.
basically is.
God, all right. Is it only on Apple Arcade right now? Will it eventually come out on?
So far as I know, it's only on Apple Arcade. I don't know that it was originally made for Apple Arcade because they have fully integrated controller support.
Yeah.
But it is on Apple Arcade right now.
All right. Well, sure.
So I don't know if the game was intended to be released on Apple Arcade, given that it has controller support and the kind of game that it is.
Yeah.
Like a puzzle platformer is not a natural fit. But one, I'm so glad that they got the funding to finish this game because it feels really special, just even with a couple hours into it. It's long, too. There's a lot of levels. So I just looked forward in the quote-unquote episodes that are there. That's how you divide the levels up. And there's a bunch. There's a bunch more than I was expecting. But yeah, it has full controller support, so I wouldn't be surprised if you see it on a Switch or a PS4 or a PC later.
In the near future, for sure. Yeah. I will probably wait for it. I'm not gonna resubscribe to Apple Arcade. No offense, Apple Arcade.
Listen, I just forgot that I was subscribed to it, literally.
Yeah.
The game came out, and I was like, oh, I can get this!
That is what they were hoping for. They were like, I hope everybody just forgets that they decided to subscribe to this. Incredible. Rob, can we talk about the Order 1886?
We sure can, Austin.
I haven't finished it yet, so heads up on that. We will talk some spoilers about it. I know, Rob, you are an Order fan, right? Can you talk to me about the Order 1886 just to set a baseline?
Okay, well, about what? Because we've hit the premise before.
We have, but you like it a bunch. You think that it is a stronger, more compelling gameplay experience than some of its kind of competitors, things like the Gears of War games, I'm guessing, and things like the Naughty Dog like the Uncharted 2s and 3s, or Uncharted 1 maybe for sure.
So I started playing it again because I was like, I need to update my expectations, and not expectations, but impressions. And a crucial thing boy, this is going to sound like I'm backpedaling, probably because I am.
Yeah.
The Order, I think, was one of those games that gets painted with the brush of it is a launch window showpiece, right?
Yeah.
Just totally empty. It is nothing but a graphic showcase. There's nothing there. I played it years after the fact and had a delightful experience with it. Playing it now, I do think there are parts of it, as a shooter, that it hasn't particularly aged well. I think it is very much it does check every box of cover shooters, cinematic type games in that time period, where it's very basic, take cover, stop and pop, and then occasionally you will have a quick time event where you mash a button or hold a button to make something cool happen. That being said, I do think it has a beautifully consistent visual style throughout. I think it is... There are a lot of games that try for different sorts of spectacle, but The Order feels like it has a fully considered aesthetic that it is working through. And also, I was kind of a sucker, and I think I still am, for this notion that you take this old idea, this sort of standby of fantasy and English literature of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and the mythology around that, and you transplant that to the height of the British Empire. And what becomes of those ideals that animate a national myth in the face of a global capitalist empire.
Right.
And what I really do like about that game is it does become an exploration of how even the Knights of the Round Table get corrupted by this. That, like, the things that make them heroes in one context are the things that turn them into upholders of not just a status quo, because really it's not a status quo, it's an ongoing expansion and oppression of other peoples. And so a large part of this game is this growing divide between their avowed ideals and their history and how they conceive of themselves, and then what it is they're actually called upon to do. What does it mean to be a Knight of the Round Table, a guardian of this realm, when the realm is now operating a supercharged East India Company.
Right.
When the realm is now basically being governed for the benefit of a vanishingly small class of like arch capitalists and imperialists at the top, and everyone else is there to serve that or be ground up by it.
I am so with that game is in here, but there is also another game that I think makes a fatal error. It makes two in a row that really pulled me out of it. I really loved the first 6 hours of this because I think the world building is really fantastic. I think the visual design is like heads and shoulders above its peers in terms of there being a sense of place that has history, of even some of the level design I think is really sharp. I'd say through the airship level where you are infiltrating and in this kind of vast airship, the Zeppelin that has a bunch of different segments in it, some of which are very mechanical and kind of, the kind of backstage area, if you will. And then the front of stage is the parts of it that are like the cabin for people to sit in, or the cabin for people to like look at museum exhibits. So vast is the Zeppelin. And there's a series of really fun gunfights in there and encounters with major characters, and you can feel the tension building, and then it all blows up and you crash land into Crystal Palace because again
an ill-fated building
with an ill-fated meaning, and it is a fantastic. It's another one of the things that's like this period of England, right? World's Fair stuff, and Jack the Ripper is here, and but it works. That part works for me. From that point forward, I think the game ends up making two back-to-back mistakes that end up undercutting what it's trying to do. The first is in that explosion, the very the elevator pitch on the narrative of this game is you can tell something is the player character starts to get wind that something is wrong in their own house, right? That something in the order is not adding up right. As you confront this rebellion on board this Zeppelin, it's infiltrated the Zeppelin that is attempting to assassinate this kind of Lord of England, this politician, Lord Hastings. You and your mentor are kind of tossed to the ground in this huge explosion. Your mentor dies, you survive, and you want vengeance from the rebels who destroyed the Zeppelin. And what you get is this just like, you go through the proper channels and say, you have to let me investigate these rebels. You have to let me figure out what's really going on here. Something weird is happening. And the Order's leadership says, like, no, you can't do it. Like, we have to take things by the book. And at a perfectly opportune time, the rebels attack the Order's base in an attempt to kill Lord Hastings again. And you run out across the bridge and kill hundreds of these people in a rage so wrathful that even your compatriots in this oppressive group called the Order are like, dude, you have got to come back. You have to stop killing these people. We've won the fight. You are just being cruel at this point. And it's like, y'all are rich imperialists. Like, so if you're saying it, you end up killing your way through everyone who was there, decimating this rebellion, and then the next cutscene is meeting the leader of the rebellion, a queen from India who's been exiled, who is like, you sure killed a lot of my men. we should have a talk. And it's like, no, like you can't pivot from the like wrathful excess to now his eyes are going to be open because he's earned his right to meet the queen, the rebel queen, who is going to accept him into her way of life and trust him. And this is it, right? This is like the classic. This is the Naughty Dog problem. This is the problem that we talked about with Uncharted. This is like a classic. It's trite to even talk about it at this point. The ludonarrative dissonance, which Troy Baker brought up this weekend in one of those streams, by the way. He said, as you know, a phrase we use a lot around here is ludonarrative dissonance. I was like, I got a lot of questions about where around here is,
where's it being
we
used?
is. Where is it? Where did you hear that one, bud?
You say that shit around here, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, exactly. But it's through the roof here, right? As you go literally from the biggest bloodbath in the game to working with that group. So that's part one. And it's like, all right, they really wanted the turret sequence. I get it. That's frustrating. I can imagine being a writer on this project and being like, you want me to do what? Okay, fine. The second problem, though, I think is actually a lot deeper. It's a much more fatal mistake when it comes to that core idea that this is a story about the corruption of a noble institution. You join with this group and you go to investigate these docks because this rebel queen has told you, hey, you're going to see some shit that changes your mind about this whole situation. You're going to see we're on the right side. We're on the same side, you and I. And you fight your way through a truly interminably long dock sequence where you're going in and out of warehouses and fighting the same enemies for like 34 minutes, way too long. And you eventually get into to a building. And there's actually a really fun little tiny thing that's like, all right, we need to find one of these crates that has one of these weird red sigils on it. And you're going around, you're looking at all these crates, like, oh, there's red sigils on that one, but it's too high to check. Oh, they're over there, but they're stuck behind these other boxes. And finally you find the right crates, and you open it up, and these are crates that are about to be shipped overseas to North America. And inside is a body. And it's not just any body, it's the body of a vampire, a sleeping vampire. And you realize the East India Company, or the game's version of the East India Company, is about to ship hundreds of vampires to the New World, the quote-unquote New World, as a way to bring, basically to reignite this species of what the game calls, or what the Order calls, half-breeds, people who have animalistic characteristics and include vampires and lycanthropes like werewolves. I think those are the two big ones. Sometimes you fight like an elder who is just like a big hairy dude with big teeth more than a werewolf. He's like halfway through the werewolf transformation. He's like, I'm good. This is actually way creepier. I'm going to stay like this. And it is way creepier. And he was right to stop there. You end up like burning this warehouse and killing hundreds of these vampires in a sequence that I think actually kind of works because of how frightened your character is during it, and like this is really scary. But the takeaway ends up being that you realize that culture, that society has been so there's two levels. First level, capitalism is vampiric, right? The East India Company is filled with vampires. The East India Company is shipping vampires around the world and is they are infiltrating the local communities and are making themselves more powerful. And it's like, again, it's kind of like reading Themes 101. It's like, oh wow, the capitalists are sending vampires. Okay, cool. But it's fine, right? That part of it's like, I get it. Okay.
Delivering lots of smiles.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that part's all right. But the part that ends up getting me is the takeaway then is the Order was good. Society, England, was good until it was infiltrated by the half-breeds. This is the text of the game, is the lycanthropes and the vampires got involved and ruined everything. And the message being sent that imperialism, that this empire was good until the half-breeds showed up and found their way into positions of power, is not quite the story I think the game thinks it's telling. But that is exactly what happens. Lord Hastings is revealed to be Jack the Ripper and also a vampire. The leader, one of the leaders of the Order, is revealed to have brought in a lycanthrope because he couldn't bear to kill the lycanthrope. And so you're shown this other version of, you're not literally shown it, but you can imagine imagine a different version of this history in which, if he doesn't bring in this lycanthrope, he doesn't bring in this werewolf, then events ABC don't happen. If we just killed all the vampires instead of letting this one get away and become this important Lord Hastings guy, then we don't have a problem there. The rebels are also there to fight half-breeds and kill the half-breeds that have have infiltrated the highest reaches of British imperial power. Like, when you have the good guy rebels saying what we have to do is kill all of the half-breeds, you end up going like, again, there is extra nuance there. There is like, yes, they shouldn't have probably tried to do genocide on this race to begin with, obviously. But the follow-up there being, and then that race infiltrated and corrupted this group is a tough pill to swallow. It feels like they didn't quite untangle what they were. Where they brought all the threads together and they were like, that's it, good enough. That's a quilt now. Quilts aren't made by thread, I know. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I think two things. One is one of my memories of this game. Like, my memories of the last third of it get really iffy. Like, I have a really vivid memory up to, literally I can tell you the scene where my clarity begins to dissolve. That great scene with Percival aboard the airship, trying to talk that kid down. It's incredible. And just... yeah, a tremendous scene, great acting, great writing. It's just an incredible moment that just all ends in fucking tragedy. It's great. And then it's kind of a blur of, like, I'm the leader of the rebels. Check out this warehouse. Oh, no. And then all your friends being like, I don't want to hear this shit. Yeah. So I think I agree that the... vampire fiction often ends up in this place of like, this is another race. And what they do is, via blood, they infiltrate and destroy cohesion and, the institutions that were meant to keep them in check. And... if you're just in the vacuum of like, vampire fiction doesn't map to anything in the real world, you're like, okay, sure. But unfortunately, it never does, right? You're always in the, how does this map to the real world? What are the metaphors in place? And the minute you start to raise that stuff, things like, damn, we really had a good thing going here until those damn half-breeds infiltrated our fine institutions and corrupted them. Then it's extremely messy. I do think I'm replaying the game right now. I need to play more. To me, I think it does feel from the first like there's a bit more of a problem where they, at least Galahad and maybe Percival, already have a sense that the Order hasn't been good for some time, right? That there's a moment as you head into Whitechapel where Percival starts reminiscing about like before it became a slum where the underclasses were just kind of forgotten. And he starts talking about how different things used to be. And I think Galahad says a lot of things were different. And Percival's response is, including the Order, or something like that. Right. And so I do think in the text of the game, I think even predating the infiltration of this, I think there is a text where the Order can't be the Order as it begins serving this nakedly imperial interest, even setting that aside. I do think that's part of it, but by the end, that has been kind of backgrounded by the fact that they've got to tie everything into this really preposterous conspiracy that makes the entire thing kind of fall apart. Where, like, I'd forgotten that Lord Hastings was fucking Jack the Ripper. I'd completely forgotten that because it's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's just like, no.
We don't need it. Yeah. You don't need him to be Jack the Ripper. He could just be a shitty lord. He doesn't need to be a vampire. He could just be a shitty lord.
Yeah, but the fact they have to be like, oh yeah, Jack the Ripper, totally involved in the United India Company. The United India Company is Jack the Ripper, but also they're vampires, and they're going to infect the whole world but America, which we really don't want to happen because it's America, duh.
Because you're probably American if you bought this game. That's our bet.
Right. So that does fall apart. Did you finish the game?
No, I'm at the I'm like at the arrest, right? So I'm about to go into. I'm catching up with the exactly. Yeah, it was just like I'm like looking at it like homework. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, here we go. The end of one of these games can be sometimes really fun and spectacle filled, and other times can be like grinding my teeth as I'm fighting a boss over and over again.
This one, its resolution is very much setting up the Order 1867 or whatever, which we're never going to get.
Right.
But I did come away. I think one of the reasons I came away liking this game more than you do right now is that I think the note it ends on is enjoyably not redemptive.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, I'm curious about that. I will finish it this week, probably. It has been a good shut off my brain and shoot at werewolves game.
Also, the reflections and lighting in that game.
It's gorgeous.
Delicious.
It's a gorgeous game. Like I have no complaints about the way it looks, honestly. I did have one other thing. Oh, I will say the core premise of what the Order is does work for me, and I think does complicate the vampire thing a little bit, right? Because which is, again, we're talking spoilers about this game at this point. This game's been out for 7 years or something. I'm sorry, but we have to talk about it. It turns out when you want to have deeper conversation about a game and its themes, you have to talk about the story a little bit. Unfortunately, sometimes an embargo is put in place where you're not allowed to do that, and so you have to speak in generalities. But with the Order 1886, the Order, they slow roll you on the fact that the Order is themselves sort of like, for a while I thought they would be vampires, because when your boy Percival is like, oh yeah, things were better back in the day, he doesn't mean 20 years ago. He means like 250 years ago. It is slowly revealed that these people have been alive for hundreds of years. There's a very funny moment where I forget who it is. Lucan is like, yeah, I'm breaking out the crossbows for this one, and your dude is like, oh, just stay silent, and he's like, or maybe it was the other way around. He's like, just also nostalgia for the good old days, before there were guns. Like, oh, that's a long time ago. That's hundreds of years ago.
I think some of these characters do sell you on the idea of the curse of immortality is an old theme, but I like your cops who have the curse of immortality, right? Like the notion of like.
Well, because like one of the big ones is there's a romantic couple, there's a romantic interest in this game, and she's like, when are we going to get out of this life, Galahad? And he's like, once we put this all behind us, we can get married. And it's like, yeah, y'all been cops for 300 years, my dude. Like, I don't know, I don't think you got retirement in you. You've been 300 years from retirement for a minute now. It's time to hang up the badge.
It's very much like Lethal Weapon. It's like your last decade of work.
Yeah, that's how it is. The reason I think that metaphor actually works for me is like, they've had the time to fix this. They've had nothing but time. They are basically immortal. They have like a little vial that they keep around their necks that they can drink from to heal themselves. We talked about that last week, which I guess is filled with their own blood after they've drinking from the blood of the Holy Grail? Question mark? That's, I think, the mythology there. And so in that way, they're like self-drinking vampires. If they drink their own blood, they get to live forever. And that's like that's great. Whoever wrote that down, mwah, I love it. There's so much to play with there, so much to unpack. But unfortunately, there also have to be real vampires, and that complicates it.
I do like that element of this isn't like these are all people who came in and the institution was rotting, and it's like, oh, you joined the Musketeers, and it turns out they're not what what's cracked up to be. These are people who were there for the good old days, saw the institution rotting around them, but also didn't see it, like chose not to. And
had plenty of opportunities. There were 365 days in a year, whether you live for 80 of them or for 800. That's a lot of days, Yeah.
So I do like those parts of it.
Yeah, me too.
It's a fun game.
I will hopefully wrap that up this week, and we don't even need to revisit it, because I will message you privately and be like, oh yeah, the end. So that's thanks for our Order check-in, really quick. Any other final thoughts or things? I want to give two other quick shout-outs. One, I should have shouted out while we were doing the game show breakdown. There was a game that was... This is really frustrating. During one of the events this weekend, the publisher New Blood had a trailer with like 5 of their games in them. And there was supposed to be a trailer for a game called Gloomwood in there, and then that trailer just wasn't in their montage trailer, except for a very little bit after the montage trailer played, and the pitch guy from that company was like, "Oh, also here are the games that we have. Here are the links you can go to." And Gloomwood, one seems really cool. It's from the producers of, I guess it's not from the developers of, so it doesn't really matter. It's like a Thief style, like creeping immersive Sims style thing. Very kind of, low poly 3D vibe. That is really fun. There's a demo out on Steam. People should go check that out. It's called Gloomwood. Enjoyable. The second thing is I will actually probably revisit this next week or later this week in deeper context. Grift Lands is now on early access on Steam, and I know some people just like don't fuck with Epic Game Store, and if all you do is buy games on Steam on PC, Grift Lands, the card game by Clay Entertainment that takes place in kind of a really, really cool sci-fi, like grimy, low rent. Like, I love it so much. There's a lot of great world building in it for a card game. You would not expect a game that's like Slay the Spire to then have really fantastic mythology around what the local religion is, or the ways in which that local religion butts its head against the Admiralty, which is the military branch of the government, or against the Spark Barons, who are like the one group of people who can use the technology that's been uncovered from ancient dig sites. Like, a really, really cool world for a game where what you're doing is playing cards to either win fights or win debates. But also, there's an entire debate me, bro card system in this game, and it's really good. It's very fun to build a deck around like either being very aggressive or being very conciliatory. It looks gorgeous because Clay makes very gorgeous looking games, and I'm glad more people can play that now. And also briefly, this just dropped while we were recording, Invisible Ink on Switch. So that's exciting. And not Invisible Ink 2. I know. That's the dream for me. But yeah, on Switch, I'm gonna go buy that the second we finish this podcast. So those are my two remaining shout outs. We do not have time to get into questions today. I think we should probably just wrap things up. But if you do have questions for future episodes, you can send those to gaming@vice.com with the subject question. As always, thank you to Bowen for letting us use the track Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. You can follow everything that we do here at twitter.com/waypoint. You can follow me at twitter.com/Austin_Walker. Rob, how about you?
At Rob Zachney.
Gita, how about you?
At XOXO Gossip Gita.
And special thanks today for Sophie, for who is doing the editing and production on this one, who's standing in for Kato, who I hope is having a good vacation, a good break. Shout outs to both of them. And until next Friday, we'll be back Friday with presumably some stuff from whatever that EA showcase is, and whatever else we've been playing. As always, fuck capitalism. Go home. Peace.
Hey Waypoint listeners, Rob here. A bunch of us have been longtime PC gamers, and as we all know, we're always looking for that little bit of extra power. As you know, with high-powered gaming, the difference between winning and losing is measured in milliseconds. Which is why if you don't already know about the legendary Alienware Battle Station, you need to. Alienware is especially designed to increase your speed and accuracy with every click, every press, every sound, and every frame. The comprehensive setup includes a cutting-edge gaming desktop, mouse, keyboard, headset, and monitor, all designed to give you every advantage. When everything's riding on your next move, none of it really matters if you don't have the right gear. There's so much power, so many possibilities on Alienware PCs with Windows 10. Learn more at alienware.com. Hey, this is Rob from Waypoint Radio. Obviously, I'm super into all things gaming, and there are a lot of us out there, especially now that we're all getting in some extra gaming time these days. Give yourself an edge with a comprehensive setup that includes a gaming desktop, mouse, keyboard, headset, and monitor, all designed to work together to enhance your speed and accuracy. I'm sure you know, the difference between winning and losing is measured in milliseconds. Having the right weapons isn't just a bonus, it's essential. There is so much power and so many possibilities on Alienware PCs with Windows 10. Learn more at alienware.com.